right. So hello everyone. My name is Minguez. I am a physical therapist. I'm a homeschooling mom. I've been homeschooling for 6 years. I have two boys, Tristan and Axel, is my special needs child. And I'm married to Jason, who's also a physical therapist. And we are just so blessed to have the freedom to homeschool here in Texas. The purpose of this video today is to just kind of give you some ideas or give you guidance on how to homeschool your special needs child here in Texas. But I have my friend with me, Erin. I was so inspired with her. Last week we did kind of like the same time, Saturday, we did a video on just the basics of homeschooling. So I'm gonna have her introduce herself and then we'll get right to it.
Yes. Hi, I'm Erin. I have been homeschooling for about 9 years, 10 years almost, and I have 5 children. They're all pretty close together. And truth is, I didn't technically have special needs that we knew of. However, as my children progressed, I realized that at least 2 of them had some form of dyslexia. And so I might mention that, although that I think fits into a different category than special needs, only in the sense that it's a brain difference and a learning style difference rather than some of the disabilities, the more limiting disabilities that people face. Still, though, it's very common, and so we'll probably talk about that just a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. And for those of you who don't have special needs kiddos, kind of hang around because we're going to be sharing just like some really cool treatment strategies that might be very beneficial for your child who might be a visual learner or like a kinesthetic learner and, you know, like with dyslexia. So we can hang around because you may find something that you can use for your kiddos. All right, so how do you homeschool special needs here in Texas? Like homeschooling special needs has its own, you know, like unique challenges because of just the learning disability and physical disability that your child has. However, you know, it has its own challenges, but it also has some great benefits because like in my experience, I'm able to meet my son Axel where he's at and cater the homeschooling to his ability, his lifestyle, and also his interest. And that makes it such a very unique learning experience for him. So just the basics here in Texas, as a special needs as a special needs parent, you are not required to enroll your child in a special needs program through public school or private school. You do have the freedom to homeschool your special needs child. If your special needs child has attended a public school, you may be familiar with what they call the IEP or the Individualized Education Program prepared by the school. You are not required by Texas to prepare that as a homeschooler. However, if your child has been enrolled in a public school and you're going to withdraw your child to homeschool, it may not be a bad idea for you to have a copy of that IEP because it already has like the most recent like strategies and modifications and learning styles and therapies that has worked for your child that were recommended by their teachers and therapists. So if you can have a copy of that IEP, that would be awesome. But as a homeschooler, you don't have to make one if this is like like if you're just starting to homeschool. I don't have an IEP. Like I really don't need it for like benefits purposes. Sometimes if you have to apply for benefits for your special needs kiddos, they may need an IEP. So like I don't have that, so I don't have a suggestion, my preference. You are not required to do like any school records or keep records for your child. But most of us homeschoolers, we just kind of do it just so we'll have records of how our child is learning. It's just going to benefit you in the long run. And you can look back, on that, that after the school year, say, okay, wow, this is like what we have learned, this is what we did that week. And if someone like, complains or reports or whatever, at least you have that proof to say, we've been doing on May, first week of May, this is what we've been doing. This is all the things that we covered. And so, I just, even though it's not required, I just highly recommend for you to keep records. All right, so let's say, okay, you're ready to homeschool. You've decided, you've prayed about it, you're ready. So where do you go from here? And this is pretty much like a standard kind of like guideline for everybody, for every homeschooling family. So the first one is be sure that you join a like a homeschool group in Texas. So like I love THSC, Texas Homeschool Coalition. There's others that are really good, but it's just that I happen to be with THSC. They were the first one that I knew of and went to their convention and just love it. So you would, and even not as a member, you could go to their website and have all sorts of information and resources for you. So make sure you're connected with THSC or other similar organization. The second one is that you really have to understand the law here in Texas. And then that way, just for your peace of mind, I know, especially for homeschooling families, you have dealt with all sorts of stuff, either through the school or getting your benefits. And then I know, like, you're kind of so by the book of, like, is this legal? Like, well, how do we do it the right way? And so I'm just going to, like, discuss that real quick. The only requirement to legally homeschool in Texas is, your instruction must be bona fide. The curriculum must be in visual form. So it could be books, it could be workbooks, it could be, online where you can see it in video monitor, okay? Visual form. The curriculum must include the basic subjects of reading, spelling, grammar, math, and good citizenship. And we're gonna go through each one of those, on how to do that in a special needs setting. Your child must also be taught, it can also be taught in another family's home. So you can actually, like, ask a family member like grandma, to homeschool your child, or you can even hire a tutor, for your child. That's allowed, that's okay. If you homeschool, the courts in Texas have determined that Texas homeschools are like private schools. So you as a homeschooling family is treated like a private school. So you can pretty much, have freedom to choose your own curriculums. As what Erin said on her video the last time, you could do like a Monday, Thursday program or a Tuesday, Saturday program, whatever it is. The beauty of homeschooling is you can, like really cater, your learning to, whatever your family situation is or what your needs are. Another important thing for you to know is that local school officials, so if you belong to, like an ISD, they do not have the right to make kind of like an inquiry. You don't have to report to them to determine whether, your child is attending, school or homeschool. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. So that's kind of number 2. Those are like the basic rules that you need to know. And sometimes knowing that just kind of gives you peace of mind that what you're on the right track. Number 3 is like withdrawing from a public school. So if your child has attended public school already, you have to inform them that you are withdrawing your child from the public school. And you can go to THSC website and they already have a template, whether you're going to do it by email or you're going to do it by mail. They already have that all set up. One thing that I want to point out is before homeschooling, before you start homeschooling, you have to already communicated that with the either the principal. No, you have to write the letter or email the principal, the counselor, or the attendance clerk of your school. And then that just, like protects you from any like truancy charges later. So that's very important. And also one of the requirements from Texas Education Agency is that you have to, in writing, you have to say that, I'm withdrawing my child you know, today, and then tomorrow we're going to start homeschool. So it's very important that you put the date of your, you know, the first day that you're going to start, you know, your homeschool. It is and I also want you to know that really that's all you need to do. That's all you need to do. You don't have to show up in person, and they really, you know, they really recommend for you to do it. Just either mail the letter, or email it, or do both. um, it is very important for you to know that if the school calls and tell you that, oh, by the way, you need to come here in the school and fill out some more paperwork or whatever, do not go to the school. Instead, you can respond to them by email, or, you know, in writing, but you know, legally, you don't have to. You do not go back there. So that's just kind of like, you know, like the basic things. Number 4 is find a local homeschool group. And we have an amazing group of families here, Angelina homeschool educators. Make sure you're in our Facebook group, and make sure you reach out to 1 or 2 or 3 moms. Several of you have already reached out to Erin and to myself, and we are so excited from Erin's video, you know, last week, that, you know, like, you reached out to us. So Erin, what did you find? Because when I started homeschooling, I was surrounded with maybe like 3 or 4 mamas that I, you know, like, I apologize for bugging you like crazy. Like, what's the best curriculum for science? What's the best curriculum for history? What worked for you? Yeah. So, like, what was the benefit for you with that, for you and for your kiddos?
Oh, it was having other women, other moms who had kind of gotten started, or maybe we were starting together. I had a few who, most of them actually were former teachers. They had taught for a couple of years, and then decided that once they had kids, they were once their kids got school age, they were pulling them out. And so they modeled that for me, and kind of helped me pointing out good websites, good resources to use. That's where we discovered Starfall, and that was like our go-to every day. We'd go do Starfall, and I still miss it. It was just so cute and so well made. Some people use ABC Mouse. I think that's fine. I haven't tried that one out yet, but it was good to have somebody who could say, basically, to listen to what you were doing and say, yes, you are schooling, and help you stay on track. Yeah, it was good accountability.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like, you know, like, for support, like, you know, like you spent 2 hours, like, I felt like I haven't accomplished a thing. And then you have that mama to say, you're fine, you're okay. So that helps a lot. So make sure that you reach out with, you know, like a homeschooling family, 1 or 2 or 3, and you know, you have that. We have, you know, one of the best, you know, like, homeschool community here in our area. Number 5 is just research your curriculum, and this is probably like one of the most challenge that, you know, people or families that start homeschooling is like, which curriculum do I choose? And I think that's like the most questions that we get from our group. And so Erin talked a little bit. If you haven't watched her video yet, she did like several styles of homeschooling, the different curriculums. And then I'm going to give you just some ideas, you know, today as well. Number 6, yes.
So I forgot during the last video to talk about which curriculums were Charlotte Mason. So I gave y'all examples of each one, but somebody said, well, where does My Father's World fit in? Oh, well, that fits into the Charlotte Mason style. So My Father's World is one. Heart of Dakota is another that fits that Charlotte Mason method. And there was another one I can't remember, but anyway, those are a couple of them. They really,
yeah.
That was, I just left that out last time. Thought I'd mention that again this time.
Awesome, that's good. And so number 6, you know, there's so many, like, listen to Homeschooling 101 videos. You know, you can watch Erin's video, you can watch this one for special needs, and refer, you know, like, other families to it. But like on the Texas Homeschool Coalition, THSC website, they have so many 101 videos there that are so helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that might answer many of your questions or questions that you haven't even thought of. You know, they've already answered that. So, you know, and those are so handy because you can listen to it while you're driving or while you're exercising or walking, and you'll learn a lot from those. And then the last step, of course, you begin homeschooling. It's like, now what? So, one as a special needs mom, you know, one thing that I get asked a lot about is like, okay, I get it, I get the homeschooling movement, but like, how do I teach those five, you know, requirements to my special needs child with all of this, you know, with the disabilities that they have? So I'm going to go through all of those five subjects and just kind of share like what are the basic learning challenges of special needs kids are, and then just give you some ideas. And Erin will give, you know, like would contribute to that as well. And, you know, just, you know, it's not like there's not really with the special needs curriculums, there's not really, there's a few curriculums that are available out there. But as a special needs parent, our needs are so, gosh, are so varied. And so you just have to pretty much put a curriculum together for your kiddo. And again, you know, instead of looking at it as a struggle, look at it as a, you know, like as the beauty of homeschooling where you can meet, you know, your child's learning challenges, you know, like make it really personalized for him. And so, and my hope for doing this is that, you know, just to encourage you and to give you that confidence that this is doable, that this is doable. All right. So let's start with reading. If you have a child who has ADD or ADHD, it's good to use like ebooks with an auditory component so that they can listen and at the same time look at the screen and, you know, while reading on the screen. It's also important that you teach them in small chunks. That may be 2 or 3 sentences, you know, to read, and then ask them, okay, tell me about that. Let them narrate it back to you so that you would have an idea of what did they grasp from that. If they have to start with just one sentence and for you to kind of break that down to them, that's okay. And then graduate to, you know, 3 sentences and 5 sentences. Oh, that's already a paragraph. Instead of, oh my gosh, you know, my kid is, you know, supposed to be on, you know, fifth grade level, and I have this fifth grade curriculum. He's reading kind of like in the kindergarten level, but I'm going to read this just so we can say that we finished this whole chapter. And, you know, it's not like that at all. And you don't have to be, you don't have to struggle through that. You know, make it an enjoyable learning for you and your child. And so, so just kind of do it that way. That's for ADD, ADHD. For kiddos with dyslexia, use ebooks with an auditory component, so kind of the same way. But then always find ways to supplement that learning, you know, depending on kind of like what, you know, their dyslexia struggles are. So Erin, can you add to that on dyslexia? Like,
Yeah, yes. People often think that dyslexia is a spelling disorder or a reading disorder, and it's actually not. What it is an auditory processing disorder where what they hear doesn't translate into words. This is a person who's very visual, very right brain. In fact, it's been proven that their right brain is about 10% larger and more active than their left brain. So it's a physical and mental difference in the child. So it's finding ways to, it's not that they cannot be taught to spell and they cannot be taught to read. It's that you have to find a unique solution for them. So one of the things we've done is using the auditory books, audio books, while the child reads along, so that they're reading at a normal pace while listening to the words the way they're supposed to be said. So it's often using more than one learning style or more than one way of converting information. If I'm myself, I can kind of fall into that dyslexia group. And I will sometimes walk while I'm listening to a lecture or a podcast. I can retain a lot more information if I'm walking. So you're going to talk more about movement, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just an example. So don't be looking for the stereotypical things, is
Right.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's often go ahead and research. If you think your child has anything, some kind of learning disorder, research it, pursue that, ask questions, find people who have similar problems.
Right.
There are really good solutions out there.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for that. And then, like, for if you have a child with autism, so my son actually is 15, and with reading, find a reading material that relates to their interests. Okay, so if they like dinosaurs, you can start. It doesn't have to be a reading curriculum. You can start with like gathering up some really very visual dinosaur books. If they love going on a family fun trip, maybe you could do like a kind of like find those types of books, where you can go to different places and then discuss that. If they like fruits and vegetables, you can start with that. And when they are so interested on that, then they tune in. But if they already reading is already overwhelming to them, and then it's a subject that they have no idea or they don't like, then they're just gonna tune you out, and it's just gonna be crazy. So you would rather have a subject. Again, it doesn't have to be a reading curriculum, and just kind of work with that. So when we started with reading, like Axel was so interested in animals, and this is like the Draw Right Now series, and he just loves this stuff. So like very simple. So we draw this, we color, and then he reads this, and it's very big. And so, and simple words. So like he loves reading it. And then this becomes part of our like copy, like copying or handwriting, where he would kind of write that. He would have some questions that you can discuss. So, like something simple like that. You can even pick words here that could be their spelling word for that day. But so you can like even just a simple something like this, which is a Draw Right Now workbook. You can do all sorts of stuff. With autism, you want to make it bigger and bolder. So when I started homeschooling Axel, I was very ambitious that I'm gonna make him kind of like read all of the stuff when he's so overwhelmed with reading. If he sees like more than 2 lines in there, he gets so overwhelmed. But it's amazing because if the same page, and then I would write the first 2 sentences on this big blackboard that we have, he would read it without a problem. So if you are, like if he's having a hard time, like reading those, it's so overwhelming for them, just make it bigger. How can I make it bigger and bolder and easier for them? So we started with that, and then we went to choosing books that have fewer lines. And then we kind of bumped up to, okay, maybe I can cover, where he can just see 1 line at a time and do that. And then he bumped up to, okay, now he can read and just like make sure that, he points to each word. And now he can read without pointing and without, us covering each line. So, and it took us a while to get there, but then again, you just have to work where your child's level, is at. And,
right.
And with autism, it's always something that is interesting to them. Choose a topic that's interesting to them.
That's interesting because Mahal, we ended up I made a, they have them now, but I didn't have anything like this. I realized that my children were getting overwhelmed by all the words on the page. And so I took an index card, or I think I used a black sheet of construction paper that was that size. And I cut a little window inside the card that was the size of of 1 line of text. And then I laminated it, and that became their reading card. And it so helps. So if you're having trouble with those early readers, because they jump so quick from 4-word sentences to lines and lines of sentences, then that helps break it up.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a really, really good there. Don't, if you're, you have to watch for those stress reactions, Mom. If you're if they like tune you out, or if they get out of the, get out of the table where you're working, that's stress reaction, fight, flight, fright, fooling around, or God forbid, faint. So those are all reactions. And if they start doing that, if they start kicking the chair, or if they start, like pulling their hair or screaming, that's a sign that they're stressed out. And then I go back and say, okay, how can I make this simpler for them? Like for Axel, he has this signs. When he looks at me and says, Mommy, I want to sleep with teacher. If he says that, that means that he's just so overwhelmed with what I'm teaching him right now. And so I kind of say, okay, let's take a little break. And then I find ways to simplify what I'm teaching him. So, and again, that's the beauty of homeschooling, because if they're in a school setting where the teacher has, I don't know, 20 kids, in the classroom, they really kind of cater to the needs of your child that way. So, but in the homeschool setting, you can easily, do that. Take a break, let me, look at this again, see how I can simplify it for you and make it interesting.
Oh, that's so good. Tell them again those 4 or 5 signs that your child is under stress.
Yeah, so stress reactions: fight, flight, fright, faint, or fool around. If they start doing that, and that could be like different for each child, like fight is, they kick the chair, they punch you, they hit you, they hit themselves.
Throw the book down.
Yeah. And then fright could be, like just screaming, like it's just scared, or, flight, they'll, go to the next room, or actually will say, I need to go potty, so that's another way. And just to get out and do that. And we kind of do that. We have those stress reactions too. Yes. Yeah.
Even just ducking their head, doing this, doing just,
yeah.
Looking, and you start seeing the little tears.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a flight. That's what trying to get out.
Yeah. And then freeze reaction is they just like stare at you and not do anything and just stay there. So as parents, we have, as in a homeschool setting, we just have this great opportunity to watch for those reactions. Say, okay, it's either we need a break, or how can I make this more interesting for him, or simplify it so that it won't be as stressful. So yeah. All right, how about if your child has severe disability or multiple physical disability? Read alouds would be so good for them. Movies, just watching movies, or short like short shows, on YouTube or Netflix. There's so many like kid shows now where they're so good at just like kind of more towards learning stuff, learning their colors and learning their shape. So you can even start with that. And also another thing, if your child is kind of like severely involved, you can just start with just really, getting them to track, because that's a very good prerequisite in reading. A lot of kids right now just have a lot of screen time, so they have a hard time reading, because when you read, you have to go from like side to side and you have to track, and they're so used to like just doing this. And so have like colorful objects, and just, or like something that's visual for them, is something they like, and just kind of do kind of like a lazy age where they kind of track, so even just doing something like that every day to help them, going from like left to right, and help, track, your visual cues. So those are very important, for them, as a pre-reading skill. Yep. Anything you want to add before we go to writing?
No, I think you covered some really good tips there. I think that's going to open some eyes to notice that their child isn't misbehaving just to misbehave. They're actually misbehaving because they can't understand what it is they're supposed to do.
That's true. And especially for special needs kiddos, that's even, like more important. And sometimes when they're in school, like teachers just overlook that as like a bad behavior. And so, I'm a firm believer that, every kid can learn, but if they can't learn, at all, kind of like in the classroom, we're like the same style. This doesn't work that way. All right, so the next is writing. For ADD, ADHD kids, allow writing to be done with visual aids, okay? So either it's drawn in pictures, that helps them a lot. And then it helps them for you to, just kind of talk them through, like if you are, let's say writing about Apple, um, it gets their attention if you also talk to them about it and not just, just like writing a text. For dyslexia, um, again, do not limit just that writing on a text, but maybe if they're having a hard time with that, kind of think out of the box and say, all right, so this is what we're going to write about. We're going to write about, let's say Apple, and allow them to have a choice to express their knowledge in different avenues, like, tell me a story. I'll give you 2 minutes, and then each child should come up with a story about Apple, or like do oral presentations, or they can draw and tell you about it, or they can even do a poem, or like do music and play their favorite musical instrument with it, or do filmmaking. They can do. That's so fun for the kids to do. So again, the beauty of homeschooling, you'll hear me say that over and over again, that you can really find ways to, all right, you got, like in school, you got to write this, got to write about this, give me 5 sentences in a paragraph and give me 3 paragraphs. And that doesn't work that way for kids. So for dyslexia, they, make sure you just think outside the box, where they're still learning, they're still doing all of that, like formulation of all of this, like words and stories, but just in a creative way and in their own style. So Erin, you want to add to that one?
Oh, the writing. Oh, I thought those were excellent. Yes, using being able to orally present reports, um, acting out a play was another example I thought of. Yeah, my kids, they did learn to do book reports, but they needed to be attainable. Like you said, don't just say, give me 3 paragraphs, but have them actually answer questions. There are some great worksheets online. They're real easy to just print up. Science experiments the same way, you're writing, but you also want to incorporate their personal learning style, because remember, these learning styles translate into the real world. Not every job involves essay writing.
Right.
So we need to remember that we're building life skills, not just school skills.
Right. Yeah, that's really good. And then for autism, just again, make writing assignments short and something that makes sense to them. Again, playing into their interests. It would be more interesting to them to write about dinosaurs if they love dinosaurs, versus getting them to push them to writing about 4th of July or, something if they don't like it or if they don't understand what that is. So again, play on their own interests. If it doesn't make sense to them, they'll tune you out, for writing. For kiddos with severe disabilities, pre-writing activities include even just holding objects to prepare them for writing, with a pencil. So for example, if depending on their disability, they can start with holding like bigger objects and then graduate it to smaller objects until they can, like hold a pen or hold a crayon. And there are like pens and crayons right now that are big, that are designed to accommodate, like physical disabilities like that, to help them write. So there's so many in there. Don't limit to pencil and crayon or paper, or pencil, crayon, but just give them different stuff, a highlighter, a chalk, and, and there's so many out there, to choose from. And then also, maybe all they need is to train them to do the movement to where they can tap or touch, like an iPad, so that to help them communicate. So those are the things that they can do that you can really set them up for success, that they'd be able to communicate, like that way. So the next thing is spelling. And so for kids with ADD, there's so many apps for spelling and vocabulary. And the most important thing is, repeating the words to them. Like repetition is very important to solidify that spelling and definition. And for spelling in general, anyway, always make sure that when you introduce the spelling words to your children, that they have that experience of the right spelling. And what I mean by that is, instead of saying, okay, let's say, like you have that list, like, okay, I want to quiz you, like, how much of this and then they spell it. And so if they have words that are wrong, for example, cat, and they spelled K-A-T, and then you say, no, that's not the right spelling, it's C-A-T. And so when you ask them later, their brain had two experiences, the one that the child wrote that was wrong, and then the correct spelling that you showed. And so when you do that, and then they have to retrieve that memory and spell it, their brain would say, which one of that was right? And so make sure, and sometimes, like as parents, we're like, so like, we want to challenge our kids, but make sure that when you do spelling, they have the experience of that right word. Cat, C-A-T. We're going to write it in different colors. We're going to, write it in different papers. We're going to write it in a tray of, rice or flour, so that kind of make it more proprioceptive. Make sure they have that before you even quiz them, or you may not even have to quiz them. They just have to have that, that experience of properly spelling that word, if that makes sense. For dyslexia, it appeals, and this is for both dyslexia and autism. Make sure that the words, it appeals to them if they're word groups, like fall, like spelling words for the fall. Like Axel just loves that stuff. Summer words or Christmas words, or like birthday party words. They just love that. And you can just all sorts of ideas that you can do, like with that, with, like kind of themed way of introducing spelling words. You want to add to that, Erin?
That was really good, using units for spelling words. I really like that, because most of the spelling books I have, they just go from simple to complex.
Right. Yeah.
And or they do word families, which I thought that's what you were talking about, was word families. But no, I like that, the spelling groups, the words that are related to each other, because then they have context.
Right. Yeah.
They have a story.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's like in their interest, because if it's not in their interest, it tune you out really fast. So yeah, it makes sense to them. It makes sense. They're so good at categorizing and grouping stuff. So you're playing on their great abilities and talent. I'm
going to make a little plug for a resource that we've used, and because dyslexia is it's pretty unique. It's kind of what you're wanting to do with spelling words is find patterns. And there aren't very many patterns, or at least not real obvious patterns, to the English language. I have a really good book on spelling the English language, and I can't think of it. I think it's the logistics of English. But another resource I have is called Dyslexia Games. And what it does is it moves from pictorial patterns to letter and number patterns. So, and this is a real deal, because if somebody in my own life, when I'm stressed and tired or hungry, I cannot spell. It's one of the early signs that I am overstressed and overtired and I need a rest, is I cannot spell simple words. The other thing is, oh goodness, I forgot what I was going to say. Mahal, you just keep going. I'll come back to it.
You were talking about this curriculum, the logistics.
Well, dyslexia games, basically it uses picture patterns to create word patterns. They translate. So it's training that pattern, or that logistic side of the brain, to say, aha, here's a pattern where we've got A-U-G-H. A-U-G-H always says af, and we also use little tricks. I use little tricks where I don't memorize the pattern. I actually will have an alternate pronunciation in my brain. So it's not laugh. It's laugaha.
Yeah. Wow.
You ever heard that? Where it's laugaha. Yeah. Or it's M-I, crooked letter I, humpback I. That's how you learn how to spell Mississippi.
Right. Yeah.
So it's those little, sometimes
yeah. That's cool. I also want to share, when I went to the homeschool convention, there was a teacher that developed this. It's called a Pure and Simple. And she has just pretty much a whole book that has words in it. And, you know, by the time you finish that book, your child can read really well. But it's more of developmental reading. Highly recommended for kiddos with dyslexia, autism, ADD, ADHD. But then I love that, like the next school year, she came up with like workbooks for it. So, like for example, this one, you know, this is their word list. Whoops, I don't know, their word list, and then he should do like, how do you, you know, like rhyme this words. Like Axel loves them, even if this is not like by themes. Like he loves this stuff. And then how to like definitions of those words, and then to write a sentence, and then how to arrange them alphabetically, and and then like finding these words in the dictionary. And Axel loves it because then I make him highlight the word in the dictionary. You figure out like what page did you get that word. So just some basic skills, introducing them to that. You know, and that's a really good curriculum too. So another thing for the theme spelling words, like there's an awesome resource, teacherspayteachers.com. And like I love it because their units are super cheap. Like there's teachers there that make this spelling themed curriculums, and they give it to you per month. So I know, yeah. So they have they have August ones, you know, September, and it has games, you know, on those words. Like they have all sorts of activities just for those words, and they're amazing and super cheap. So I love those. So I love supporting those teachers. Like what you would get is like a whole lot more for, you know, for your money, because like I could never like make up those worksheets in like, you know, a month. Like they're awesome. All right, so if your child has severe disabilities, you know, concentrate on word formations and sounds, so like more phonics. You know, like there's so many. I remember leapfrog. You know, the A says ah. You know, like Axel love that one. So when they're, you know, like let them listen to that, or you know, like repeat them to that, to so just start, even just starting with, you know, learning the sounds of the words. You know, is a really good good prerequisite for the spelling skills. All right, math. Oh. All right, so for math, let's start with ADD, ADHD. Use a math program without excessive words or distracting pictures. Just make it as simple, you know, as you can. And then stressing repetitions. Again, I tell moms, it's okay if it would take you a year and a half to finish a curriculum. That's fine. What's important is like you repeat that until your child learns, you know. You don't have to, okay, I have like 1 month to, you know, to left to finish this, but we're just gonna hurry through it. I have sometimes like it's even a simple concept, like we started from addition to subtraction, and Axel was so overwhelmed with that. Like, you know, again, you know, watch your child's stress response. And this always happens. If I introduce a different concept, it takes us sometimes a week, sometimes 2 weeks to get used to that. And Axel would say, I'm so sad about this subtraction. I just love addition. And I love it that he can verbalize that to me now. But for some, it may be, you know, like hitting mom or hitting a sibling, or like throwing the book away or slamming the book or the pencil. And so watch for those reactions. And if they do, then try to simplify it, or repeat the ones that they enjoy or that they have mastered. Just repeat that to boost their confidence, and then slowly introduce other concepts. You know, and it may be the only thing that you do for that day. That's okay. So I like doing the Matthew C. It's very proprioceptive. It's very simple. And when I went to the homeschool convention, you know, it comes with like this blocks, but the blocks are usually small. And this one is for the teacher edition. And I told the company, I said, oh my gosh, I would love to have access to that. And so they allowed me to buy the teacher version, which are so big. Again, remember, the Autism bigger and bolder. So I'm like, man, this would be awesome. And they're color coded, so Axel knows that, a 6 is a purple, and 7 is, like this whitish color. So this is so good for your kids who are visual and who are proprioceptive learner, where they're like touching stuff, and then he gets to play with it. At the end, he gets to play with all of the blocks at the end. What have you used, Erin, for math?
That's great. I was just thinking, the math you see, those objects are really good for the really young kids.
Mm-hmm.
I used, and this was pretty effective, because I wanted them to learn mental math skills, taking it from concrete to mental. And so I would take the little counting bears, and I would put like 5 little counting bears under a bowl. And I'd say, okay, so you have 5 bears. What if I take 2 out? How many are under the bowl? And so they would have to mentally think, okay, so 2 have been removed, and they would have to visualize or imagine the 3 that are left under the bowl. So that's an idea of doing it in a very preschool level, or an early mental level. But then you build, and I think that's really key. And you said this, and I think we need to repeat it. Math is mastery. If you can't master the addition and the subtraction, then you can't add and subtract fractions. You can't move on to multiplying and dividing, which is just skip counting or adding and subtracting by groups. So I feel like that's really important, and I think you hit that really well. That was a good point.
So I think that's all good for like autism, ADD, ADHD, and kids with dyslexia. Is just make it as visual and as simple as you can, and then you can keep adding. I love your idea of like starting mental math with that. That's awesome. All right, so if you have a child with severe disabilities, pre-math activities help children to learn that the world they live in is in order or in line or in some shape and some form. So you can start with that. You can start, like you can go to the dollar store and they have all this like shape things for $1. So you can just kind of do that. And maybe, if they like, glitter, like you can color, or you can, glue glitter in a triangle and post that by their bed where they can look at it, and then so make that, just like super simple. And again, just or lines, like you can do all sorts of lines and make decorations for that, for their, for their room. Stuff like that would be good. And don't be so, again, like special needs moms and parents, I just don't want you to just be like, oh my gosh, is this enough for my child? Because really truly, our kids, when they, they're not going to say, Mom, I just really love that unit 5, chapter 3 that we did in, in history. That was so awesome. I just really love that. They're really going to say, Mom, remember those reading times where we would all sit on the couch and just read this book, and we get to cuddle up. And then when Dad comes, we get to show them what we, what we colored or what we drew that day. That was just like, I love that. That's what they're going to remember. And I don't want you to feel so stressed out figuring out a curriculum, but just really be there for your child and loving your child and understand them and meet them where they are. Don't worry about all this other, families that are achieving this and this and that. This is the ministry that God has given us to take care of our special needs kiddos, and just have to embrace that, and sometimes there will be a day that you don't get to do anything or you don't get to learn anything, and that's okay. That's okay. You are there for your child. It's the most important thing. All right. So good citizenship. This is the last one. Good citizenship really is just pretty much like incorporating values, to your curriculum. So for ADD, ADHD kids, they always have problems with organizational skills. What a great way to tell them that, in life, there is order. Like, they can learn that responsibility. So, you can incorporate that value by having them create lists or timelines, organizational charts, chore chart, calendars just to keep track of their lessons and their activities or what they're doing. So for dyslexia, emphasize like good citizenship and social interaction. They may not be good with like doing charts or writing down stuff, but they can, you know, say, okay, I want you to think about a neighbor that you can help and what you can do to help them for this Saturday. And then when you get back, I want you to tell, you know, the family about it. What did that feel? How was your experience like? Maybe you can write like a short video while you were, you know, telling us that. Or maybe you can draw about it. And so they get to tell you that, you know, that story. So, you know, something creative like that. Um, for autism, again, you can do unit studies. And I'm so blessed. Erin posted one morning. I'm so glad I was probably the first one that saw it. And she said, oh, you know, I'm done with this. Who wants it? And she took a picture of the fish. I'm like, gosh, that's just Axel's, you know, like a reading level. I'm like, I want it. And so I think we're like almost like we have this much left, but we've enjoyed this, Erin, you know, this school year. And what I would do is I would we didn't get the workbook that goes with it, but I would just go and, you know, and draw something. And Axel loves coloring it, and he gets to write the story. And then we get, this is our first thing that we do in the morning, and he looks forward to that. And then we talk about that story and what we learned, and then the application for him, because he's so like, this is my lesson. And it's like, well, Axel, remember Daniel, you know, God shut the mouth of the lion and he was safe because he prayed and God protected them. He was safe. So we're going to ask God today, you know, to protect us and to keep us safe always. And you guys, so I was doing that, and I just really want him to know that, you know, we're learning all of these stories, but I want him to really get that if he needs anything, he can always ask God. And so during this COVID-19 stuff, you know, he was so like stressed out that he doesn't get to go places anymore. That was important for him, like go places on Saturdays and Fridays. And so when he asked me, I said, well, actually, we just have to pray to God that people will get better, and that, you know, to take that bad virus away, and that, you know, so that, you know, the sick people will be better and that God will heal them. And so every time he asked me that, you know how autism, they repeat and repeat. And so when he asked me that, I would just say the same thing. We have to ask God to pray. And then one day, one day, he said, I want people to get better. I said, well, you know, you got to ask God for it. And he just simultaneously put his praying hands together and said, dear God, please take the bad virus away and please heal all the people so that people will get better. Amen. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like you guys, I don't have to teach the school year. Like my purpose is done. Like Axel recognized that and he did that on his own. I'm like, oh my gosh. So anyway, and that's the beauty of homeschooling. And you know, like they'll remember those. Those are life skills and values that you get to teach your child when you homeschool and you spend time with them. So anyway, I know that was really awesome. So Erin, you have no idea how much this little book of yours is worth.
I just love that. That's so beautiful.
So
I was thinking about what you were talking about, especially with special needs kids. Sometimes breaking out of the routine. Well, first building routine is important and difficult. For us, we had to, and we didn't, not necessarily special needs, but we needed some kind of visual reminder of what our school day was going to be like. So I had magnets that had, actually, if you've ever read Jan Brett's version of The Mitten, I printed up the coloring pages for that. Cut out each animal that fit in the mitten. And so the mitten was our school day. And then each animal was each subject or activity that we had to do. And so we would stick it in the mitten as we did it. And that helped some of my, especially that child that I really suspect had dyslexia, needed the reminder that no, we're not finished until we're finished. And so I feel like, you know, having magnets or some kind of visual that this is our school day, schedule in their notebook is helpful, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then also learning social skills, man, that's good citizenship.
Yes.
Learning
Yeah.
to speak, to look at the person they're
Mm-hmm.
speaking to say, hi, nice to meet you, or thank you for coming. All of those things. Anytime you volunteer and drag your child with you, you are teaching them good citizenship.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you bake cookies for somebody, I just thinking there's so many ways. That's one of those things that you have. It's the blessing of homeschooling. You have so many opportunities to
Right.
teach
Yeah.
citizenship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, you know, like for kiddos with severe disabilities, you know, one thing they could, you know, just again, just all sorts of ideas here, but you know, like have their work, either take a picture, you know, of that and then send it to someone, either a family member that's far away or just a friend. And then like if they, you know, give you an emoji back or whatever, just let them know, look, you know, you made Miss Erin so happy because like she saw your you know, the drawing that you did today or whatever, and just give them that value that they can connect to people and they can also, you know, like do something for other people. That's a great value for special needs kiddos where everything is kind of done for them and they have all of the services that are being done for them. But for them to realize that, oh my gosh, I can do something for someone, or I can send, you know, my artwork to a friend, you know, like their age. So just so many things, so many opportunities, you know, to teach, you know. So there you go. Those are like the 5 requirements. And as you can tell, Erin and I are just so passionate. We're just like, yeah. And again, that's the beauty of reaching or having someone, you know, like just imagine like if Erin and I meet at a regular basis, like, okay, Erin, like what are we gonna do for this next month? Help me with this, like give me some ideas, because what she learned, I've learned so much from, you know, from the different styles that she did. And I'm sure she got a lot of ideas from mine. And our hope is just to really, really kind of bring your stress level down and say, you know, like, yes, you do have those curriculums, but you don't have to follow them book by book. You can be creative. You are your own private school. You know your child well, and you know you can do whatever you want and cater it to your child, and just instill values on them. That's the most important thing. As I said, you know, they won't go back and say, that was awesome when we learned, you know, multiplication, chapter 3. They'll say, Mom, you know, all those times that we had to have lunch together, or, you know, we get to pray when you saw something in the news and we prayed together for that person, or, you know, for that event. You know, those are just like amazing values that you can teach your child. And what a privilege for us homeschoolers to be able to do that and to model for them, you know, what a godlike person, you know, like responds to all the things that were that's happening right now. And I love it when, you know, Tristan would say, oh, Mom, they said that on the news. So what do you think about that? You know, like I said, well, let's look back to our plumb line of, you know, God's word, you know, like that's our basis. Okay, let's do, you know, let's kind of assess that. What was that right or was that wrong based on, you know, the biblical truth. And so, you know, so those are just some of the, like, just the greatest things that homeschooling. Forget curriculums, you know, that just, you are awesome and you're going to be great. So, Erin, last words from you.
Well, I just want to let y'all know that this is such a privilege to meet with you. We really take it seriously. We're trying to present our best knowledge, but we're definitely not going to cover everything. So please comment with questions, contact us, and feel free to share this video. It's a public video. We want it to be used, but just be careful using any of our personal information. That's all we ask. So thank you, and God bless your homeschooling journey.
All righty. Bye.